Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Shauna and I have 4 kids, 2 of which I'm currently homeschooling. Today's video is a collaboration that I'm hosting with Devine over at Calm in the Chaos Homeschool, and we are going to be talking about all the things that we wish we had known before we started homeschooling. So I'm going to link the playlist down for that in the description bar, so make sure that you check it out when you're done with this video. So jumping into it, I've got 8 things to share with you guys, and then I'm also at the end, I'm going to share some things that I feel like I did right, because I feel like you can learn from the things that I did wrong and right. So hopefully that can help you if you're starting out, or just give you a refresher, because even us veteran homeschool moms need just those gentle reminders every once and again about what we can be doing better. So number 1, don't stress over curriculum. And I know you're like, what? Why? This is like all I'm doing. This is my one job, is to pick a good curriculum that will educate my child and help me to not fail them and to speak to all of their interests. But you are brand new. You need to give yourself some grace and not overwhelm yourself and expect you to be this expert just, right out the gate and choosing the very perfect curriculum. And sometimes you might get lucky. I got lucky our first couple of years choosing the best curriculum for us, and I was so happy with it. But over the years, I've changed what we use because it was no longer working for us. So sometimes you might get lucky and you might pick that perfect curriculum, but that doesn't mean it's always going to be your perfect curriculum. Number 2, don't buy a million workbooks. I said this in my, I think, curriculum that I hated video. I'll link it up here if you guys want to see some of the curriculums that I did not like and why. But I got so excited our first year of homeschooling that anytime we saw like the dollar spot, or we went to the Dollar Tree and I found, fun and engaging workbooks, I would buy them. And I've spent, I don't even know how much money. It was so much money on workbooks, and it was so ridiculous. And you know how many of those workbooks we have used? 0. So don't go overboard with your excitement starting something new if you're that type of person. Don't buy the workbooks. Just leave them at the store. It'll be fine. If you need them, you can go back, but make sure that you really need them and want them before you let your excitement take over like I did, and then you have like 50 workbooks in one of your homeschooling bookcase boxes, because it's just not worth it. Number 3, I wish we would have taken a little extra time and de-schooled our kids and myself. And if anything, I'm more so speaking for myself, because I feel like while we did really well in the beginning, and we're even doing really well now, I feel like there probably would have been a little less of a learning curve. I wouldn't have expected as much of probably my youngest one as I did if I had taken that time to rewire my own mind and taken that time to read more about teaching and education and what education has actually become since it started, and homeschooling, and just taking that more gentle approach. And I think that would have worked out better for us in just during that initial first year. And when you de-school, it doesn't have to be like this crazy long time. It doesn't have to be 6 months or a year. You can take the first 2 or 3 months that you're gonna start homeschooling, and you can take that time off, and you can just have that as your time to rework how you look at education and how you look at learning, and where you think your kids need to be versus where they actually need to be. And you can kind of just fill in any gaps that you have, because I know for me, I'm very type A, and I personally went to public school. My oldest had gone to public school until her senior year, and then we pulled her out to homeschool. And then so I started homeschooling my second child and my 3rd child, and then my 4th child, he's still a toddler. So the majority of my experience with schooling has been with public school, and that public school mindset of, oh, well, you're in this grade, so you should be doing this, and you're in this grade, so you should be doing this. And I wish I would have taken that time to just kind of, figured out a better way to think and approach education with my own children instead of comparing them to what my oldest had done in school or what I was doing at their age. Number 4, you don't have to start school too early. There are so many times when I see moms asking about schooling their 3-year-olds and their 4-year-olds, and while I think that that can be great depending on the child, if that child is showing that they're ready, most kids that age just want to play. And when the year that we started homeschooling, my 3rd child, my daughter, she was 4 years old, and I was like, oh cool, we're gonna teach you your ABCs and your numbers and your letters and the sounds. And I wish I would have waited until the following year. I wish I would have just introduced it in gentle ways, like through songs and play, instead of pulling out flashcards and trying to use a curriculum. We ended up ditching the curriculum, but I did attempt to use a curriculum, and she was kind of little looking back, and I wish I hadn't approached her with that much learning at such a young age. I wish I would have just left it play-based. Number 5. I wish that I would have worked in more playtime and games in the beginning years of us homeschooling, because a lot of the reasons why most of us homeschool is for that extra time with our children, even if that's not necessarily like your initial reason for homeschooling, it becomes a reason over time. And kids learn and they relate to people so much through play, and I wish I would have taken a slower paced route and not set so much pressure on myself, and I would have sat down and played more games with them when we had first started. Number 6. Remind yourself that education is not just going to be found in those curriculum books. As great as they are, and as much as your kids will need to know how to read and how to do math, those things will come with time, and there is so much that they are learning in their day-to-day lives that are not going to be found in any curriculum book that you could purchase. So no matter how amazing that curriculum is, there are just going to be some things that they learn through watching you or watching your husband or interacting with others, and things that they just naturally pick up. Number 7, you don't have to finish the curriculum book. I wish I had known this my first year. I thought, oh, well, here's my book and it says for grade 3 and I've got to finish the whole thing. Otherwise, he didn't really finish 3rd grade. And or 2nd grade, and that was so silly. And you know what, it actually took a conversation that I had with Devine over at Calm in the Chaos Homeschool, because she told me that even public school teachers don't finish their curriculum books every year. So if you are getting to the end of the school year and you're like, wow, we are a little bit behind, or I'm just hitting burnout and my kid is hitting burnout and neither of us want to do this, then don't finish it. Especially if they've mastered all of the big concepts in that book, you don't have to finish that book. Now, if you're only like halfway through it and it's, the end of the year, you can decide to either go longer in the year, or if you're hitting burnout, you can decide to pick that book back up the following homeschool year. You're not gonna be behind. Your child's not gonna be behind. It's gonna be okay. So if you don't finish that book in that, given school year, you can use it for the following school year if they haven't mastered certain things that you want them to master before moving on. Or if they have, then you can just chuck it and say, good job, kid, and give them an A+ and move on. Number 8, this is just as much for you as it is for me, and this is my refresher, my little reminder. You have to be good at carving time out for yourself. You are giving them so much of yourself each and every day. You're wearing so many hats, from mother to cook to cleaning lady to educator to laundry maid. You are doing so much, and you have to be good at carving out time for yourself, because if you are constantly serving, you are never sitting down to be fed. So you need to make sure that you, when your husband gets home and he's had his time or whatever routine that you guys have, you let him take over with the kids for a little bit, if hopefully that's an option for you, because I know not every husband is encouraging in this area. But it is so important to take that time for yourself. Go meet with a friend, go upstairs, go get a cup of coffee by yourself, go read a book, but you still have to be a person outside of being a homeschool mom. And you guys, trust me when I say this, it is so easy to let your identity become I'm a homeschool mom, because it's literally what we're doing all day long. It's what we're thinking about every minute of the day. What curriculum should I use? What reading books should we have? What subscription boxes look fun? Oh, what are these fun learning resources? It can become this monster that just takes over your life, and it is beautiful and it is amazing, and your children are blessings, but you also need to be a person outside of them. So please hear me when I say to carve out time for yourself, even if you have to find a mother's helper or a babysitter that comes, once a week and can take the kids while you go and recharge a little bit. You have to make yourself a priority. I think that is just so important when you decide to start homeschooling. Now, as far as my tips for the things that I think I truly did right, the first thing would be, one, I had my husband on board. This was not an easy feat, you guys. Initially, he was like, I don't know, I've met some homeschoolers. It's always that story. I've met homeschoolers and some of them are weird. I've met some public schoolers who are kind of weird too. So I don't think it's necessarily where they were schooled, but just more so personalities. So it took a little bit to get him on board. We had a lot of heart-to-hearts. By the grace of God, he had this amazing man in his life who he really respected that happened to homeschool. So I was like, hey, why don't you talk to him? And that just happened to work. I have a whole video on that. So if you're struggling in this area, I'll link it up here. So hopefully you can get some encouragement from that and maybe even watch it with your husband. But I would say have your husband on board. And I know that sometimes they might be on board enough for you to homeschool, but they might not always be supportive of you homeschooling. Give it time, because sometimes, initially my husband was hesitant, but now we're 4 years in and he is completely sold on it. He sees all the benefits of it. He loves that we get this much time with our kids and that they're not out and being bullied and just all of the problems that we were having in public school, and our kids are so happy. So he sees that, and sometimes I've learned with men that they have to see it in order to have buy-in with it. So give it time, pray over the situation, pray for his heart in the matter, and hopefully everything will work out for you. The second thing that I feel like I truly did right was I stayed flexible. So many videos that I was watching before I started homeschooling talked about you need to be flexible. It's good to have a plan, but that plan needs to be flexible. And they were so right. And I feel like truly staying flexible on what was working, what wasn't working, not necessarily being married to any one schedule or curriculum, really, really worked well for us the first year. Actually, the first couple of years. Even now, we're going into our 4th year, and I feel like flexibility is my saving grace on a daily basis, because sometimes your kids wake up and they're in a bad mood or you're in a bad mood, and you have the flexibility to just take the day off if it's not going to be a good school day, instead of just harping on it. So I feel like flexibility is a must-have in homeschooling. So if you don't have it, then you need to get it, because I'm type A and I know that it might not always be easy for people, but this is something that's desperately needed. Number 3, because we were flexible, I was also not committed to any one scheduled breaks. Now, I made our schedule for the year at the beginning of our homeschool year, but if I noticed my kids were getting a little burnt out or just they needed a break, we would take a break. And if I noticed that, hey, we could go a little bit longer, then we would go a little bit longer and just kind of bypass our break or push it off. This was such a big help because in our first year of homeschooling, I gave birth to baby number 4. And so it was a huge blessing to be able to take that entire month off after having him and find our groove and our routine with him before we just try to jump back into schoolwork, and then I overwhelmed myself. The last one, I know that this might not be for everybody, but hear me out. I feel like the fourth thing that I did really, really well in our first year of homeschooling was we went with master books for our curriculum. Now, if you guys have been here for a while, you know that we've since changed from master books. It wasn't meeting certain things that I wanted for my son. But I truly, to my core, believe that that is the best curriculum to start with if you are looking for a Christian-based curriculum when you first start out homeschooling. And I say that because its gentle approach allowed us to find our routine with homeschooling. It allowed us to not be overwhelmed from an extremely challenging curriculum that we gave up because we hated it in the first year. And, I think it just gave us a slower paced school year in a way that allowed us to connect. It allowed my son to learn, and it allowed me to not feel overwhelmed from juggling all of these different subjects. Because sometimes you go to a curriculum company and you're like, oh, I'm just going to buy their kit because it'll be easier. And then they have, math and science and language arts and Bible and 5 other things. And you're like, this is a lot. And I have more than one kid to teach. And it can be very overwhelming. And sometimes I feel like, while that's great and the kit can be such a convenience, it can also have the tendency to push people away because they're overburdening themselves because they think, oh, well, the public school is teaching them all of these subjects, so I should be too. And in reality, what you should really be doing is just following your state guidelines on what you're supposed to teach, but you should be catering it to what you can teach and how. Because just because they might go over all of these subjects every single day does not mean you have to go over all of these subjects every single day. This is where flexibility comes in. So that is my my best tip. Oh, actually, I have another one. The last thing that I feel like we did really right was we did a block schedule, and talking to you guys about all of the subjects made me think about that. So we would do math 2 days a week, and we would do multiple lessons each day. And then the other 2 days we would do language arts 2 days. And so we would just kind of swap them. So Monday and Wednesday we would have math, Tuesday, Thursday we would have language arts. And then somewhere in there, either on 1 or 2 days we would have science, and then the other 1 or 2 days we would have history. And then each day we would do Bible. So it might sound a little confusing. I'll link a video for our old block schedule that we were following up here if you guys are interested. But that was so helpful for us. And especially being a mom of multiple kids, it helped me to be able to get each child educated for that day without feeling like, oh, we still have 4 more curriculums to get through. So I feel like block schedules really help new homeschoolers as well as all homeschoolers. So if you're also a seasoned mom watching this, revisit the block scheduling idea if you have veered away from it like I have, because that might be something that I'm going to do again this year. So that is it as far as the things that I wish I had known before we started homeschooling. I hope they helped to hear. If you're new to homeschooling, let me know down below. I would love to hear from you. If you are a seasoned homeschool mom, then share your tips, because I think that hearing multiple people's tips and tricks and things that worked for them and didn't work for them is such a wonderful learning experience. And I have learned so much from hearing you guys share your lives and the things that have worked, and I just love hearing from you guys. Don't forget to check out the playlist. I will link it down below in the description bar. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up, hit that red subscribe button, and I will see you again later. Bye.